Hello, true believers. This is bebotsonly coming at you with another video. And this time, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about something very important here in the Philippines and in a lot of Asian countries, actually, is saving face. Now, this becomes very important, especially when it comes to a wide variety of topics. And one of the things that I probably want to focus on right now is the Christine Dacera case. Christine Dacera, to recap, she's the flight attendant from Philippine Airlines that she died New Year's Eve from natural causes. She just had a aortic aneurysm. I don't know if it's abdominal. And oh, by the way, my next review is going to be this camphor Gundam. And here, let me see if I pull this back a little bit. So that's a little preview. That's what I'm gonna. I got a bunch of reviews I need to do, so I'm gonna be doing that one next. And I'll just talk about the subject matter here, the discussion here, saving face and Christine Dacera, because there's parts of the Christine Dacera story that explain some things, some phenomenons about saving face. And if you look at the Christine Dacera case, and the first thing that happened was that we have here is a pretty young girl, all of a sudden dead. And next thing we needed was forget that. I didn't say we needed. Next thing the police needed was the the people that caused her death. Okay. And what it turned out to be was that the police said, "Oh, okay, we have a body. We have to have a killer. We have a dead body, so we have to have a killer. So we have smoke, so we have to go, okay, where's the fire?" So it became a witch hunt where the police, especially the chief of police, all the police were saying, "Oh, this is automatically a rape because there's a pretty girl and slay case." So rape, homicide, rape, murder, and then boom, problem solved, case solved all of a sudden. And we have to dive into that why, okay? Because somebody just died, and instead of facing the truth, what we decided to do was save face. I repeat, instead of coming out and accepting the truth and going out and looking for the truth, it was more important to save face. I repeat, this is where the saving face becomes a powerful force. Okay, so obviously we have a dead body, so we must have murderer or murderers. So the first thing that the police looked into was the people that she was with, which is normal, and they automatically assumed that they were the ones who killed her. And before that, since we have a real pretty girl, automatically we have to think murder. Every time you think a pretty girl, we have to think about it's going to turn sexual, which is fine. The problem comes in is that the people that she was with that night were all gay. Okay. Now, gay people, they're not usually your rapist type. So, and then the chief of police came out and said, when he was confronted with that simple fact, he said, "Well, these guys, how can these guys rape her because they're gay?" And he says, "So what if they're gay? I don't care if they're gay. They're still men." So he's probably saying when they're drunk, which could happen, but to claim rape, that's a serious allegation. That's a serious accusation. You have to have evidence for it. So the medical legal report, I have a medical legal report, and which we will dive into it in a when it's time. But I just wanted to explain. Even the medical legal report explains that there is no such thing. So, gosh, next thing I think I should do is I should just live stream while I'm talking like this. But anyway, back to, they said that it was rape. So, even if they were gay. So, back to the medical legal report. The medical legal report says there was no sexual activity whatsoever. There was no semen whatsoever. And there was no signs of any physical sexual encounter whatsoever. Okay, there was some bruises on her knees, which can happen from any activity, especially if you're drunk. Then the question is why now? So why all of a sudden it the police insisted that it was rape? And that's ultimately because of we have the same face over here. Even now, after all that, the mother of the deceased, I don't want to say victim, over here, if you look at I was reading the Inquirer online, and she still says that they were still saying, even after all that evidence came out, that they were saying that there's still the rape is involved. So here's the mother saying there's a problem, that she was raped and then she was killed. I don't know why. Why are they saying this? That because rape and murder sounds way better than she got drunk with friends and had an aneurysm. We have to. The people had to ask. We wanna. They wanna shift the blame of why she died from something that happened naturally. Uh, Aortic aneurysms rupture, and they're like clicking time bombs. There's no rhyme or reason. If you can catch them, you can operate on them. But once they burst, there's no way. You've got seconds, maybe minutes, where a person's gonna before a person's bleed to death. But as far as I know, I could be wrong. From my knowledge, if it's you got to catch it before. And from my experience, aortic aneurysms, you only catch them when they're how do you catch them? Because when a person comes in, you do for surgery, you do a whole bunch of screening on them. You do run a bunch of tests to make sure a person is a good candidate for surgery. I mean, they can survive the surgery. You have to check their heart, you have to check their vitals, you have to check all these things to make sure that they'll live after the surgery. And then one time, this an this aortic aneurysm was discovered during one of these screenings, and it must have been a simple, I can't remember, it was like a simple blood test, and then it was discovered. And it was bizarre. It just lit up, and I was saying, "Holy cow! This needs this this thing needs to be operated on, or this person's gonna die anytime soon." So that was one of the times it was caught during a screening. So you have to do these routine screenings, and even without a even without like a extensive exam, you can catch that with a stethoscope, or if you just kind of feel for it. But it's easier to look for it when you know it's there. Impossible if you're not looking for it. That's kind of the problem with a lot of medical diagnoses. I mean, it could be right there in front of you, but if you're not looking for it, you're not gonna find it. You really have to be in the right frame of mind. If you're not, then you're never going to catch it, even though it's right in front of you. So you have to always, when you're looking at diagnoses, you always have to kind of approach it with an open mind, because if not, you're not going to catch it. And there's really some gifted doctors that can do that. But again, if the doctor is not in the right frame of mind, doesn't have the right experience, doesn't have the right knowledge, doesn't have the right approach, then they're never going to catch it. But anyway, aortic aneurysms, there's no rhyme or reason to them. They're just random. It's just like appendicitis. Some people develop them, some people won't. When are they gonna? Some people can go through their whole lives, have it, and nothing happened to it, and then it could just rupture, burst at any moment in their lives. So there's really no rhyme or reason or any study indicating whether the her drinking or drugs had anything to do. Even then, there's no toxicology report, as far as I know yet, other than alcohol, which is normal for people to be drinking or binge drinking on special occasions. Even I drink on special occasions. And when I drink, it's usually number one, special occasion. Number two, it depends on who I drink with. I usually don't. So those are the two things that I really need. And if I'm with friends and if with people that I like, then I'll drink. But if I don't like you, I won't drink with you. That's just my thing. I don't, because drinking is such a social, personal experience. Uh, Alcohol, it affects people differently. The way it makes me, it's just the way alcohol affects me. I would just rather, the way it affects me, I would rather just have it where I'm around people that I like versus people that I don't like. I think that's for everybody, not just me. So I'll drink to a certain point, but with people that I don't like, but I won't go to the point where I'll get drunk and then all of a sudden the alcohol just kind of takes over, influences what I my behavior. So back to what I was saying about saving face or this rape. So the main reason why the even though there's no evidence, even there's no reason to say rape, homicide, is simply just to save face. And I've said this before in my live streams in the past about every number one, every person here is a virgin, because to save face, even if they're not, even if they have 5 kids already, if they have 10 grandkids already, if they have 15 grandkids already, every woman is going to say, even if they got a bunch of tattoos, even if you find her at a bar and she's a bar girl, she's always going to say, oh, you're my first customer, you're my first time. Every girl over here is going to say she's a virgin. Why? To save face, even though it's a complete lie. Okay, so if you ever get in a relationship with a girl over here in the Philippines, and if that ever question ever comes up, she's gonna say the same answer the same way she's gonna answer if you ask her if she's hungry. If you ask her any girl over here that's hungry that you don't know too well, after a while, for me, when girls I've known them for a while and ask them if they're hungry, then they'll say, "Yeah, absolutely, I'm hungry." But if you're just kind of in the initial stages where you know them, but you haven't really spent a lot of time with them, even though if they're starving, even if they haven't eaten in weeks, even if they're emaciated, even if they look like they've been in a concentration camp with no food for weeks, months, years, they're gonna say, "No, I'm not hungry. I just ate." When obviously, and then you're just asking that question when you already know the answer. You're just making small talk or conversation, but you already know the answer. And then she's gonna say, then the proper thing, the right thing to say is, "Oh, okay, well, I'm hungry," so that way they're not losing face, and this is what I'd like to eat. And this is the proper way of doing it. I'm teaching you guys how the local language works when you're talking with the opposite sex over here in the Philippines. I mean, these are just kind of givens. And if you don't know them, if you don't know anything about the culture, then you're going to be completely lost. The conversation is going to be completely lost on you. And what you're trying to do is have this pleasant experience. It becomes a nasty nightmare. All of a sudden, you're spending time with this girl. If she says, "I'm not hungry," then okay, I'll just wait until you're hungry. Then you've got a situation where you've got an angry animal that's hungry during your whole time with them, and they're just going to be associating that angry experience with you, which is not going to get you where you want to be with this person. So the proper thing to do, if you know, if you're not such a cultureless heathen, a infidel, is this is how I do it. I'll say I'm hungry, and then I just kind of pick whatever it is that I like. And what I'll do is I'll read their reaction in their faces, because that's where you wanna. Their reaction in their faces are so easy to read. You know, if it lights up and if their eyes get wide open, then they like it also. I mean, for poor people, you just say, okay, let's have Jollibee. Even though I hate Jollibee, not that there's anything wrong with it. I just get sick of it that I've eaten it so many times. That for poor people, that's kind of like something they have on special occasions. Then Jollibee, they love it because it's just they do. There's so many Jollibees everywhere. They do like so much market study what Filipinos like with their spaghetti or their how their hot dog taste, what they what flavors that Filipinos like. I mean, Italian style spaghetti versus Filipino style spaghetti, which is sweet with hot dog, and so I so it's very focused on the Filipino market with Jollibee, and they know exactly what Filipinos like. So you just say Jollibee, and their eyes get wide because there's a variety in there. You could have spaghetti, you could have fried chicken joy, you could have hamburger. You can have they have French fries, they have sundaes, they have chocolate, so they have soda. So everything's pretty much complete in there. So you can't go wrong as a default. You say, okay, well, I'm hungry, so let's go. So they're gonna say, yeah, yeah, let's go. And then even ordering is going to be complicated, and it's like, well, you just get whatever. It's up to you. It's always up to you. It's kind of like their way of testing if they're going to be happy with you or not, what your decision making or not. So what I'll do is, of course, I already know what they like. It's always chicken joy, French fries, spaghetti. Yeah, I mean, you just throw everything in, and then they had yeah, soda and sundae. It's not that expensive anyway. So you make it complete, and they pick and choose from over there. And you have to keep also in mind that their eyes or their stomach are their eyes are bigger than their stomach. Well, what's the phrase anyway? So they always, because they're hungry, they think they can finish all those things, but once you actually get it, they're never gonna finish it. So don't order too much and yourself, because you might end up having to finish. And some girls actually finish the whole thing, but some don't. So you could always order more. My rule is that there's nothing wrong. You could order as much food as you want, just as long as you don't waste it. I'm I'm a stickler when it comes to food, and I just don't want food being wasted. I mean, there's times where I went without food for long periods of time on purpose and not on purpose. But such a disrespect to waste food. So even here in my own home, I tend to, when my family has leftovers and when I'm cleaning, I end up eating the leftovers off their plate, so it just doesn't get wasted. It gets thrown away. And I don't know, like I said, it might be something related to my past about how food is just kind of either scarcity or plenty. So then you have a pleasant experience. But if you don't know what you're doing, and like I said, why did they do these things? They're not lying. This is just the culture. This is the culture of saving face, because they don't want to tell you that they haven't eaten or they're poor or they can't afford to eat, so they're hungry. So they're gonna lose face if they say yes, and they also don't want to come across as they're initially, especially if you're just in the initial stages of getting to know each other. Once you've known each other for years, after a year they'll tell you, yeah, I'm hungry, or they'll call you up, hey, which they'll do directly. But initially, to say there's no more losing face anymore, since you already know their background, you know that they're always hungry, you know then there's no losing face after like a year of knowing them. They'll tell you, oh, they'll tell you straight out that I'm starving. You know, what are we gonna eat next? You know, so the other backup, it's like McDonald's, Chicken Joy. I mean, Jollibee and McDonald's, but they prefer, when it comes to fast food, they prefer McDonald's. And then the other one is Mang Inasal. But the last time I was at Mang Inasal, it was very disappointing. They had this like pandemic chicken, so I don't know. There was hardly any people there. Usually there's like a big line because they usually have like this big, huge, healthy chickens. But now it's not so healthy. So back to what I was saying about saving face. So all of a sudden, they'll tell you they're not hungry just to save face. So back to this case where this girl, instead of saying she died of aneurysm from drinking or whatever it is, activity, natural activity she was doing on a New Year's Eve party or get together, uh, she's dead. So it's better to say that she was raped and murdered to save face, because and then all liability, all blame shifts to the people that raped and murdered her, why she's dead, versus she died for natural causes, or no one to blame, or to blame herself, or to blame the parents. I mean, if you could say, well, why didn't you catch it sooner? You know, it's your health. I'm trying to figure out how you do these kind of screenings for aneurysms. I mean, you do like a blood study, where you how you discover those things is you inject this isotope into your bloodstream, and it lights up when you take an X-ray, and you take a real, I forgot what the name of that real-time X-ray. And then you could see the when you inject the fluid into somebody's bloodstream, and then it blows up, and you see this big balloon, and where it shouldn't be, especially if you know your anatomy, then then that's how you do it. But how often do you order something like that for somebody who's healthy, who doesn't need another type of surgery? So there's really no one to blame, but somebody's dead, and we need somebody to blame to save face. Okay, so all of a sudden it turns into rape, even though the people are gay, and they really didn't, and they didn't do anything. And then so another so what else are they doing to say why? What other reasons are there to say rape, instead of what actually happened, instead of the truth? Well, the truth is another simple truth about this case. So everybody wants to just say rape, rape, murder, murder, rape, homicide, rape, slay. So everybody wants to be the victim. So the girl wants to be the victim. Okay, so she's the girl's the victim. Then everybody feels sorry for her. But if she's not, then everybody's gonna attack her. So to save face, you have to be the victim. And I'll go back to why this thing is important. Why saving face is important. Where people want to have this. People here, they have this victim mentality. Oh, she's been victimized. You know, this Christine Dacera has been victimized because to save face. Because when you're a victim, there's no blame to be allocated to you. So all the blame is put on somebody else. So it's somebody else's fault. So that way you save face. So she didn't do anything wrong. And instead of focusing on the thing she did wrong, which is the truth, then it's better to say she's the victim of rape and murder. And especially because she's dead, you know, her young life has been taken away, and we need to explain why in a way that she can save face, that she wasn't at fault. And one of the things that was the problem with her now, that shifting the blame to her is, you know, why, or to the parents, or to other people, is why was she hanging out with a bunch of dudes in the first place? Okay. And the simple reason, from what I know and from what I could see, from my opinion is Christine Dacera is a fag hag. I repeat, Christine Dacera likes hanging out with homosexuals. Okay. I don't want to sound homophobic. I don't know what the politically correct term is to say about gays or LGBTQ, whatever. The point I'm saying is that as a fag hag, it's not a positive label to be labeled as a fag hag. Okay, the girl is a fag hag. And I don't think any girl wants to be called a fag hag. And I have very limited experience or information when it comes to fag hags. And somebody might correct me in the comments. But let's clarify. I should have looked it up. I mean, I should have Googled it. I'm just doing this from memory, what a fag hag is. And the information, the first time I actually heard the term fag hag was this great movie Threesome with one of the Baldwin brothers, the not Alec, but Stephen Baldwin and Lara Flynn Boyle and this other guy. They're the two guys are college roommates, and the girl was became a roommate because of a name mistake. She has like a name. Her name was Alex, and they thought she was a guy, so they put her in a dorm with these two other guys, and it was a mistake, and it would take a while for them to correct it. So she ended up in a boys' dorm, and this is when the relationship started forming. Well, one there's three of them, the two guys. One of them is in the closet. I mean, he's not really gay, but since he's spending time with his roommate a lot, he started developing these gay feelings. So so that's when they saw that. So it was a weird. Hold on, let me reset this. It was already coming up to 30 minutes, so I want. So it was a weird dynamic where the one roommate who was having these gay tendencies for this other roommate, but this other roommate was sexually desiring the other girl roommate. So it was just this weird dynamic where one likes the other, and but this girl roommate likes the gay roommate. So they all had this misplaced feelings, and then all of a sudden it transferred. So the girl wants the gay guy, but the gay guy wants the straight guy, and the straight guy wants the girl. So, and that's where she was kind of. That's when I first heard the term. So the other people were looking at her. It's like, what's the relationship about? Well, these two guys are gay, and she's simply a fag hag. And back then it wasn't uh, good, or especially in this culture, in the Filipino culture, in American culture, being a fag, or I think with as the gay community kind of gets more advanced, especially in the media, being a fag hag is not so bad. I think I was watching, there was this series, I forgot, I think nine or something like that, number nine or nine, where they're all connected. Psych cycle psy psyche, they have this psychic link. There you go. They all have this psychic link, and there's one guy who's gay, and there's this girl that likes her, and then finds out she's gay. Oh, I like it. She's into it. She likes. So the two gay guys get into it, and then the girl just kind of joins as a fag hag. So, and some girls are into that. I mean, I think a lot of girls are into that, watching two men go at it. I don't think it's the same as natural as like men like me watching two girls go at it, because if you think one hot girl is fun to look at, imagine two hot girls at the same time. So I think it's very natural. But anyway, I don't, that's another subject. matter in itself that I've gotten in a lot of trouble with as and especially in my past and my history, as you could see. But with Christine Dacera, it's kind of like the reverse. So she likes watching men get into it, and she's gonna lose a lot of face if she's labeled as a fag hag. She likes hanging out with gays because that's her turn on. You know, she gets turned on, as you could see from the video. She was going at it with one of the gays because so that turns her on, you know, and so it's better. She would lose face. It's like, well, you know, she likes hanging out with gays because she's a fag hag. You know, that's her trip, and you know that's what's gonna cause her to lose face. So instead of saying that they're gay, it's better to say that they're rapists because the 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 blame gets shifted to her now for hanging out with a bunch of dudes that are gay because she's a fag hag. Next is, so now that we cleared that up, I mean, like I said, I could be wrong, but that's a category of women, and then that's what she was. And as you can see, she doesn't have. I think from her history, she doesn't have like a real boyfriend or a steady boyfriend, and I could probably get into what my theories are why. I mean, because she's an independent woman. She has her own job. She has her own money, so she doesn't really need a man. Versus a woman that doesn't have a job, so she needs a man to support her, to help her. So now that she's independent, she's educated, she has a good job, she has a career, she has her own money, so she can choose what kind of men she hangs out with versus the men choosing her. So what she chose to the kind of men that she wants to be with instead of regular normal men, she wanted some spice in her life. She wanted to walk on the wild side and say, gays gotta do it because you get so much. She gets such a thrill out of it. Well, then it's so she's kinky. You know, she's into that kinky stuff. She's not into the straight stuff. She's into that kinky stuff. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not. I wouldn't judge, but this place, I'm kind of liberal. I'm kind of open minded when it comes to this kinky stuff. Not that for other people. I mean, I know what I like, so that's not an issue. It's never been where I want to experiment or I'm curious about those kind of things. Okay, I know which side I play for, and there's really no question about it, and which is fine. But the problem is, there's going to be some people that are curious and they want to experiment and they want to experience all these kind of things, which is hey, you know, this is what you like. Just as long as you're not hurting anybody, go have fun. And but here in the Philippines, it won't work because being judged by others and losing face is such a big deal that it's better to keep it hidden that these guys aren't gay, that they're actually regular guys, and then that she's not into that kinky stuff. Because then the part of the blame of why she's dead or why she's with these guys, I mean, they're saying she's dead because she's with these guys, is being shifted to her, which is going to cause her to lose a lot of face. So back to what I was saying, that I so not only is she a fag hag, is that she was okay. Oh, back to before I lose my train of thought. So back to why she doesn't have a boyfriend is because you can't be a boyfriend with a homosexual is her problem. And another thing is, so like I said, she could choose. She has the option to kind of be choosy about what kind of men she wants to be with. And since she can choose, she'd rather be with gays or bisexuals or that play for both teams than with a straight man, like me. And as you can see, why would she do that? Because she's a fag hag. Why is a person a fag hag? I think it's a personal choice. That was her choice, and it's that those kind of choices are going to make you lose face. And for me, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's my choice. It's what I like, and whether I lose face or not, it's not a big deal to me because I have more. It's more important what I think than what other people think, or to do what I want. Versus, I never let what other people think of me decide what I want to do or don't want to do. But here in the Philippines, it's not only because it's such a close community. If somebody judges you, it's not just you. Your family gets judged also. Your parents get judged also. And in this case, with this girl's mother, she doesn't want to be judged as being a bad mother because she raised a fag hag. And 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 if anybody from the gay community listens to this, and if there's like a more politically correct term for fag hag, please let me know because I don't want to. Maybe it sounds. Maybe it does sound negative the way I say it. Maybe because if other gays say it, then it's not negative. Or what's the term thinking? It's not because it's not racism. It's not really, so I won't sound, I guess, sexist. So if there's a politically correct term for fag hag, please let me know, and I'll use it if for the next time I bring up this conversation. So it's bad to be a fag hag here in the Philippines. It's not to be a being gay is not so bad. It's because there's a lot of gays, but you don't want to be gay if you're like a politician or if you're an actor, unless you're openly gay. But if you're like a male leading actor, you don't want to be labeled as gay because then you're going to lose a lot of your female audience that way. Unless you're doing gay roles where when you're openly gay for comedy, but for serious leading men roles, it's better to keep it hidden, that you're keep it in the closet. So back to why we have to say it's murder, because I instead of saying, because being murdered is the victim, being a fag hag means that you wanted to be there because that was your thing. And another thing we have to go into now is the rape allegations. And over here in the Philippines, I've already said that every woman is raped. No woman is gonna say that her sexual encounter with you is going to be consensual, because she's going to be losing face. It's like, well, because over here, every girl is a virgin, and if she's not a virgin, and if she says that, then she must be forced to have sex to save face. So every sexual encounter over here is going to be, she's going to say she was raped if ever confronted or if ever brought it up. Well, this situation, it was kind of confronted because because we have a dead body, and we have to talk about what motive, why is the motive, and number one motive for why anybody would kill a young murderer, yeah, or why it would be rape, because they were raped, and so they won't complain, or they won't launch a case against you, or there's no witnesses. You murder them after you rape them, which they kind of go hand in hand. After the rape, it's like, oh crap, I need to get rid of the witnesses from this rape. So automatically they say, okay, she's dead. It must be rape. Yeah, and so every sexual encounter over here, if it ever comes to light, if it ever gets discovered, if it ever gets confronted, if it ever gets in a situation where, especially if the police involved, it's going to be rape. They're going to say it's rape. They were raped. They were forced into it. Even though, even though rape is, in most situations, like I said, if it's a girl, it's a party, she was drinking with a bunch of gays, it's kind of questionable. Even in America, they say that a girl has doesn't if she's drunk, she doesn't have the ability to consent, so it's automatically rape, which is kind of touch and go right there. So the important thing is to keep in mind is that that's a risk you're going to have to take once you get into if you get into a relationship with a Filipino girl over here. And if it gets into the next level, then you do have to worry about that accusation. And this is where bar girls come in, is because you can't rape a bar girl. It's just not. I'm not saying it's impossible to prove, but the credibility of the person, it'll become your word against hers. And if she's a bar girl and you picked her up at a bar and you paid the bar fine, it's getting and then it becomes a business deal where you've got an exchange of monetary goods in exchange for services, which is completely consensual. You both agreed to, she'll perform, you perform by paying, she performs the services, both parties are happy. And it only gets complicated, where you reach an agreement and everybody goes to it only gets complicated, like I said, when if nobody, as long as nobody finds out and nobody gets involved. If anybody finds out and gets involved, especially in this situation, in this Christine Dacera case, when the police are involved, obviously the police are going to scream rape, because the all of a sudden we have a crime, and that's where police are needed, because if there's no crime, there's no need for the police to get involved. Well, this is a high profile case, so obviously the police want to get involved, and then the only way they can get involved and get to make an emotional reaction out of everybody, to get everybody else involved. There's nothing screams, hey, everybody get interested, than saying rape, even if there is no evidence of it whatsoever. So everybody's going to be screaming rape, especially the police, especially the parents, even though she wasn't raped. There's no evidence of it whatsoever to prove it. And so in that case, in this situation, then there was no rape. So why is everybody screaming rape? That is, like I said, to save face. So you will be accused, you will be branded, you will be tried in media, mainstream media, social media, new media, as a rapist. And I have some experience with this. This rush to judgment, and the reason why is to save face. Okay, you will lose your freedom. You will lose your reputation all of a sudden, to be labeled as a rapist. And this is why people have to save their face. So this girl, Christine Dacera, even though whatever activity happened that night was consensual, but it came out publicly. So instead of admitting or going into the angle that she's a fag hag, and that she enjoys her 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 leisurely activity with gay men instead of straight men, she was going to lose face. So it was better to say rape. So, like I said, if anybody gets involved, if you get in a relationship with a girl over here, that's especially with dalagas, and that comes in the term pikot is another cultural term that I always say, because pikot means you raped the girl. You forced yourself on the girl, even though the girl likes you. she this is her way to force you to marry her. It's like, why? It's like a shotgun marriage. It's like, why would you? So if the girl saying, why would you want to marry the guy who just raped you? Why would you want to marry a rapist? And the reason why is because to save face. Okay, obviously there's no rape. Now you're gonna get married because the girl wants to get married to you. And I mean, I can make the argument the same thing happened to me. I was peacock. I mean, it's a running joke. It's a cultural given that every man over here, if you ask any married guy over here, they'll say that they were peacock. Same thing automatically, as peacock means shotgun marriage. That's the closest terminology, but it's of course it's a more complicated, or much more culturally related than that. But that's the closest thing. And just like every girl is gonna say that they're a virgin, the peacock thing, it's not really saving face. for the men, it's more of like saving face for the girl. So if you have this sexual encounter, she'll say that she was raped instead of going consensual, because if she's consensual, it'll come out as she's easy, or she's a slut, or she's loose. So, which is in America, that's also a term that people are gonna lose face and be embarrassed. So instead of being called a loose or easy, then it's better to say that she was raped. She was a victim. She was the victim here. So that's that. Like I said, that's why bar girls, you can't rape bar girls, and she can't cry rape because she's a bar girl. You're not gonna, it's not gonna escalate into a situation where so you can't yell rape. In my situation, then if it's not rape, then it must be human trafficking, is what I ran into. And then I have to deal with, like, okay, well, then where is it the part where, when it comes to human trafficking, then you automatically, that's the case, because they can't prove rape. Since it's consensual, then the next thing they could try to prove is human trafficking. And human trafficking, like I said, has elements that need to be followed, or you're not going to be, which I've already discussed. So to wrap this up, is so those are the things you have to keep in mind. So if you go with so you got two kinds of women over here: prostitutes versus non-prostitutes. Okay, dalagas versus dalanas. Okay, so you have to look at the pros and cons with dalagas versus dalanas. Dalagas automatically, if you have a sexual relationship with her, and if it ever, it's gonna come out that it's gonna be raped. And to prevent any, so when a girl over here is saying she was raped by you, it's just a way that there's two ways to get you to, because you can't milk the cow for free over here. That's just something that they, in America, it's common to milk the cow for free. Over there now is get the get why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free. Now it's also, they're saying, why buy the bull when you can get the sausage for free now, because the women over there just have more options. They have a career, they have their own money. Whereas over here, to support a family, you definitely need a man. You definitely need, because over there in America and Western countries, everything is so automated that you don't need a man, period. But over here, it's different because the family dynamic. It's always better because you need each other to survive. It's always better to have a man versus without a man. And so those are the two reasons why they can force you to get married, is say rape, or I'm pregnant, or both. Rape, my period is late, or both raped. And then the reason why they're doing that, either number one, to extort money, or number two, to force marriage, or both. Okay, it's not a problem if you're a drug addict. Nobody's gonna force you to get married. Nobody's gonna want to be forced to get married to a drug addict who's broke ass, has no money and no future and no job and no prospects. But it becomes a different situation for people like me, or for other people that that have means. And if you're that person, then you definitely run into that. You could definitely run into that problem, forcing you to buy the cow or pay for the cow. And so it depends on, but when you're dealing with the police, obviously it becomes a money extortion issue. And we'll get into that in my situation later. But in this situation, in your situation, you have to, so those are, we could always look at the pros and cons. I mean, the big advantage is, you can, with a dalaga, with a non-prostitute, you could actually develop a relationship with this girl that you know that's it's a process that's going to take over time, but at least you could develop a relationship with her, because over time that because there's going to be this link and this trust that is going to develop between you. And I always say that when it comes to relationships, trust is the number one ingredient. You can have a relationship with her, so that way she'll stick with you through thick and thin, and she's always by your side. I mean, you could say, you could use me as an example. I mean, through thick and thin, I, you know, my family, my wife is gonna stand by my side no matter what happens, regardless. I mean, I could be caught in video, I could be on camera, but they will always stand by your side if you have a dalaga. But if you have a Dalana, if you have a prostitute, number one is you can't trust them whatsoever. You can't trust them as far as you could throw them. There's no way you can ever develop a true relationship with a prostitute, because her allegiance or her loyalty is for sale to the whoever has the means. And that's such a difficult proposition. But there are advantages, just as long as it's you have this business relationship, then that's fine. Now, whether one system is better than the other, the system with the regular girl with the non-prostitute, the system with the non-prostitute obviously has its advantages and disadvantages. The system with the prostitute is has its advantages and disadvantages. Especially the biggest advantage with prostitutes is it's cheap and it's quick and it's easy and done. So I'm not really here to say one system is better than the other, because some people, that system works for them and it's the only system that works for them, and especially because based on their schedule. I'll give you an example. Uh, Cristiano Ronaldo, he's a famous football player. He's kind of towards at the end of his career right now, but in his peak, he can have any woman that he wants. But instead, from what I know, reading what's available publicly, is he's not married, and he likes children, or he has children. But what he does is he just hires somebody to give birth to his children, because so he didn't want to. So it's more of a business relationship, and so he didn't want a regular relationship with the girl because he has too much to give up. So if you're in that kind of situation like Ronaldo, well, then a prostitute is much better for you, because he has so much to lose if he ever gets married or has a regular wife. For me, I wouldn't have much to lose. But for Cristiano Ronaldo, if he gets together with a woman, and if it's like, well, then how am I going to have children? Well, then he just paid somebody to have his children. So it was a business relationship. So for someone like Cristiano, and if you fall in that same category, then the prostitute way is the best way for you, and it's the only way. Now, for people like me, which is one, which is better, which is both, it depends on you. For me, in my situation, I would like to have a real relationship with a real person. With Cristiano Ronaldo, he doesn't need that. He's got so much money. The money is more important. His football and his work and everything that he worked for is more important than any woman, any female relationship. And for me, I like to have a connection with. I mean, they have their days where I don't want it. There's days, but it's more fulfilling, especially for the kids, to have a good, healthy relationship with the mother of my children. It seems like a given. It seems like such a normal thing, but it has its risks and benefits. So if you're coming here to the Philippines, and everybody's gonna say how easy it is, people are gonna be blowing smoke up your ass because they've got an agenda to sell, they've got themselves to sell, and they've got their own experiences to sell, and nobody wants to talk about the negative, which is probably why my channel is so unpopular now, because of all the negative attention or the negative focus that I have, my channel has become instead of like nobody wants to come to the channel and see all the negativity and like what could go wrong, what's the worst case scenario. Well, this is not catered for those people that want to live in a fantasy world and they just want to like look at the positive things. Oh, it's so easy. Oh, it's so great. Oh, it's so wonderful. And the reality is, no, it's not. There's rape, there's human trafficking, even though there's no truth to it whatsoever, that you will run into with a non-prostitute. I'm going to the extreme gamut, and then having to deal with the police and their corruption and their extortion. Those are the things you have to deal with if you deal. Those are the things that are the possibilities. What is the worst case scenario? What is the worst case with a prostitute is that she just goes tells her manager that, oh, I'm not getting money. You just have a dispute over money, and then you just give her money, then it's done. The dispute is over. Now, when you're dealing with dalagas, that's hard. It's not as cut and dry as that, especially when the police get involved. Then all of a sudden, the rape and human trafficking becomes a legal issue, and then you're looking at life sentences. Your life is at stake now, and I mean, you're looking at a fate worse than death. I experienced it for 3 years, which is something I can get into. Everybody in prison, in the third world prison, would rather be dead than just kind of slowly suffer and die away. It's where the dead go that are still living. You're still in, and it's and what a lot of if you're in jail for a long time or like a repeat offender, your family, not that the word abandoned, but they just kind of move on. I mean, they have their own lives that they have to move on, and people in prison, that's their life now, which is different from. So for most families to survive, they can't continue supporting you, so they just kind of move on. And what's funny in prison is that uh, a lot of people develop families on their second, third families while they're in prison. And I could probably get into the dynamic of why someone would like a woman, a free woman with her freedom, would want to get involved with a person in prison. It's because it's one of the main reasons is it's a control issue. Men over here in the Philippines is so hard to control. And then what they have over here now, if you got one in prison, it's so easy to control. It's like having a pet in a cage that you could just kind of feed and go visit and just have affection with, just like a pet. So it's like having a man in prison is just like having a pet that you keep in the cage, that you go visit, like, and then you go feed. And then, that's very grateful and appreciative of you for keeping him alive, keeping that person alive. So it's more like a pet owner control situation, which I'll get into more detail another time. But like I said, if you get together with a non-prostitute over here, accept the fact that it's it's she'll never say that she had sex with you consensually, because if it ever comes up, that because she doesn't want to come across as easy or loose, or the fact that she's not a virgin anymore. And if she is not a virgin anymore, if there's like ever a medical legal case that she's not a virgin, then obviously she's not going to say that it was consensual, because she's going to lose face. So she's going to say she was raped. Now that's going to be a sticky situation, and you have to come. Is that it becomes a risk versus reward situation. So the reward is very high if you get into a relationship with a non-prostitute, because you could develop a very beautiful relationship with them. But the other hand is, if it goes wrong and in the relationship, uh, you get in a relationship with the wrong person, and a medical legal case gets involved, and it shows up that there was some kind of sexual relationship between you, then obviously you're looking at rape charges, if especially if the police get involved, whether it was consensual or not. Now, when I was in prison, not all rape cases were actually convicted, even though I have to say probably 90% plus do end up in conviction. But there is one of a few, and I could probably discuss in the detail, where the rape was a person was acquitted from rape and it was consensual instead. but it gets really messy. Probably one of my live streams, I want to get into that. So, but this video has gone long enough, so let me wrap it up. The reason why the police, the parents, everybody is saying that she was raped and murdered was just the simple fact is just to save face. And that's how powerful in the culture of saving face that they'll accuse anybody of anything just to save face, even though no matter how tragic a person's freedom, a person's reputation, a person's name is going to be, another person's name is going to be ruined because you have this, it's your face that, because instead of losing face, you would rather have the blame. You needed to blame somebody, or you need their face to be shifted to somebody else losing their face instead of yours. It's better for somebody else to lose their face. And even to save your own face, you're willing to throw somebody else's face under the bus. And all these gays and all their lives have become public, and they're losing a lot of face because of this situation and their personal lives just to save their own face. So there's also another story I wanted to say about saving face. I Here, I forgot. Let me reset this again. So another situation about saving face. I remember when I first came here to the Philippines, when I first moved here, and my phone was becoming obsolete. I had a BlackBerry Curve that I used for text messaging. Over here, they don't do calls, they do text messages. So I really liked my BlackBerry because it has a keypad that I could feel, and I really didn't want. I got so used to it, I didn't want to upgrade to the everything was going smartphone now. They didn't have those keypads anymore. Everybody was going touchscreen now, and it was really hard for me to do the touchscreen because my fingers are so big and fat that I always mistype, and it doesn't have a touchscreen, doesn't have the same feel, tactile feel or heaviness like actual physical buttons did. And I really resisted for the longest time until my phone broke. So I couldn't text message him, or the battery died, or it wouldn't turn on anymore. So I had to go to the store, the SM, to buy another phone so I can keep communicating again. And every phone was a touchscreen now. So I bought the cheapest touchscreen phone. And I remember the sales lady, she was just working at an SM, and I was buying the cheapest touchscreen phone that I can get because to me it was all the same. I didn't need the camera features because at that time I wasn't really blogging. I just needed something to text message, something to receive text messages, something. And if I make a call here and there, that's all I needed. So I got the cheapest phone that could do all those things. I didn't need to spend the money. Overall, I didn't need to show everybody that, like, hey, look, I got an expensive phone. I just needed the phone that will do what I wanted it to do. But I was talking to the sales lady, and I said, "Wow, look at how cheap my phone is. But look at your phone. It's so expensive. It's in the hundreds of back then. It's in the hundreds of dollars, maybe like $500, $600 phone, you know." And I was explaining to her, how come me? I spent years and years in America getting educated and getting a job over there, and after working all those years over there, look at my phone compared to your phone. Why is your phone so much nicer than my phone? If anything, my phone should be nicer than you because I worked a lot harder. And I was joking around with her. Am I doing something wrong? I mean, you should have the cheap phone. I should have the expensive phone because I actually have more money than you because I don't need to work at an SM making $5 a day to make ends meet. So obviously, you don't have any money to be able to afford a more expensive phone than me. So she explains it, and she says, "Sir, it's different between you and me." I go, "How so? Please explain to me. Please elaborate." I kind of know, but I wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth. What is it? Explain to me why it's so important for you to have a more expensive phone than me, obviously, when you're poor. And she says, because we're poor, this is the only thing that we have to be proud of. This is the only thing we can actually have to to show our status, to show our hard work in life. Versus me, someone like me, I have an education, I have an advanced degree, I have all those things. So I could show my status, or I don't need to show my status because I don't need to show that I have accomplished things because I don't need to. My accomplishments speak for themselves. Versus somebody, even if I don't have a expensive cell phone, even if I don't have a expensive clothes or expensive jewelry or expensive accessories, there's some people that can tell that I come from an educated background, or I there's something about me that no expensive watch or expensive phone will say that this person has some kind of status. Even in prison, I automatically, I wasn't as a regular prison person. I wasn't treated as a regular prison person, and I didn't even say anything. I automatically, just the way my demeanor, the way I looked, the way I carried myself in prison, automatically I had status. So I wasn't somebody that could be subject to the regular routine that a prisoner, especially somebody that's been labeled as a rapist and as human trafficker, like a child rapist or a child trafficker. If I was just a regular person, then they probably would have done something, because there were other people with similar cases, and they were given the treatment. And as for me, for some reason, I was given the benefit of the doubt, because when I was in charge of the detention that I was in, I always we were ordered. If it came down to an order, we would have to do it, and I have to follow through it, and I have to tell people, okay, give them some, but don't overdo it. Don't don't enjoy yourself too much. I had to actually order people to give them a welcome. I mean, I can't really get into detail what kind of prison life is, give them a welcome. Okay, because weren't given the benefit of the doubt. The way they looked, the way their demeanor was, they just felt guilty, or they just looked guilty, or just the way they walked or dressed, or this is what a typical person who would be a rapist would be. Versus someone like me, they're like, I maybe they're there's like, maybe they're just doing this to extort money out of him, and that benefit of the doubt was enough to that I didn't get any of the normal, usual welcome to prison treatment. Is my theory. Eventually, of course, obviously, the truth comes out. Eventually, everybody would figure it out that, oh, they're just doing this to get money out of him, which is not which is not a reason to give me the treatment. So back to the cell phone lady. This was her status. This was her way of saying that I'm a good person, that I work hard, that this is that I have goals, that I accomplish things, is through her phone. She wanted to show her status, so she wanted to buy the most expensive phone possible in her store, so everybody could say, oh, look, she must work hard, so she deserves a nice phone. Versus someone who doesn't have a nice phone, then to me, that's not an issue. Nobody's gonna say to me that, oh, you don't work hard, or you're lazy because you have a crappy phone. That's not gonna happen to me. But with her, she didn't want she wanted to have a higher status. And why? Because this is to save face. I don't think it's just here in the Philippines. People will do that. I know there's homeless people in America that drive BMWs and Mercedes Benzes, because that's where their status was. And I always said, if you need, yeah, a Mercedes Benz or a car to show your status, well, then you need to go get more status. I mean, for me, my priority was, when it comes to status, that goes first, where you should apply a lot of your resources and time and effort, is first is yourself, either through a career or through education or through to the development of yourself. Okay, because then all the other stuff that you acquire, a home, right? You have to have a home. And then after you have to have a home, you have to prioritize which one you're going to spend more money on. Number one is yourself. Like, for example, specific example is education. Number two is your home, which is, your second biggest investment. Your first biggest investment should be in yourself. Okay, through your education, whatever it is, through training. It doesn't have to be a fancy college degree, but it definitely has to be some kind of training or experience. It could be through an apprenticeship. I mean, even if it's something as simple as like a skill job, like a plumber or a carpenter or something like that. But just as long as, but you don't require a formal education, but you definitely have to invest some time where you won't get paid to get the experience. Okay, so those are the kind of things that you should invest in yourself, and then invest in your business and yourself. Next is your second investment is your home, and then you should spend more money on your home than in your car. I spent when you're home. For me, it was most people will spend more money on the house than on the land. Well, you should spend more. The land is always going to be more valuable. So for me, I like to spend more money on the land, and then not as much or less value than the house. Versus over here, they'll spend as little as possible on the land and spend as much house money on the house. The problem with that thinking is the house over the years is temporary, while the land is permanent. More, nothing's permanent, but more permanent than the house itself. Then the car, then the cell phone. For me, after I spent so much money on my own self, my own education, and my own home, and my own other priorities, that there's nothing left for a phone, or it's very little is left for a phone. So it depends on what your priorities are, and it's easy for me to say my priorities because I can you have lots of options in America. Over here in the Philippines, for example, in America, uh, you can go to college, without any money. You could be poor and not have any money. They have student loans, Pell grants, Cal grants. They have financial aid for people over there that want to go to school. You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be an engineer, you could be an accountant, you could have a career over there and go to school just as long as you have the will and the determination and the discipline. Over here, and no matter how much will, determination, discipline, effort that you have, but if you don't have any money, you're not going to be able to have an education. And it's a over here. That's kind of a it's such a sometimes I say it's a cop out because there's plenty of people over here that are poor that still get education. They just find a way, a means to do it. And but you can't do it on your own. You can't do it without any help. So you could be poor, but you definitely need help to finish your education over here versus over there in America. Just like you don't need a man, you don't need your parents, you don't need rich parents, you don't need somebody to support you to have an education. Over there in America, it's pretty advanced. That's one of the biggest advantages. It has advantages, disadvantages, where they spend a lot of social programs into educating their population. So if you'll get into a lot of student debt, but that's something I could discuss another time. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting into debt to finish your education. Just make sure you go into debt going into like a field that actually has a purpose. Don't go into it for basket weaving or some kind of what is it? What some of these other go into like don't go into a bunch of debt studying what is it, arts appreciation. There was this one girl, I asked her, she was visiting here and she said she was going to college in Canada. And I go, oh, that's interesting. You're going to college in Canada. That's good. I went to college also. What's your course? What's your degree? What's your major? And she said arts appreciation. I mean, I said arts appreciation. What the hell do you do with that? I mean, that's the kind of job that you would get if you don't need a job. And what about regular people like me who need a job? So I mean, she's one of those people that she doesn't need to have a job, She doesn't need to go to school. Her parents are pretty much set up and can set her up. So she needed it was just something. So if you don't need to go to school, or if you don't need to go to work, then pick a class or a major that you it's kind of like these rich kids. It's kind of like they won't get their inheritance or they won't get their trust fund if they don't finish college. So then they pick a an easy that they could just like not even show up to class or not even learn anything and be able to get a degree so they can get their inheritance. So for her, it was art appreciation. So so don't get into debt with that for that. But if you're gonna be, don't get into all this debt with college loans because you can't discharge them. You have to pay them off. Just like me, to get an education in a field that actually that is in demand. Okay, so accounting is in demand, network engineering is in demand. Those kind of things. They're not fun majors. They're not easy because there's a lot of competition in them, especially when it comes to the state university system. So it's not going to be easy. You have to spend a lot of hours studying the most boring rote subjects. But the point I wanted to make here is that that's the big difference over here in America and in the Philippines is you need the support of people to get an education versus in America. The social programs over there when it comes to education is very liberal that the government pretty much guarantees your so you can get financial aid, but don't get financial aid your loans so you can go to school, but don't go there for arts appreciation because there's really not a, a good job that you can get or they would offer you that will pay off those student loans as an art appreciation major. You can they'll hire you at Walmart, because you have this arts appreciation degree, but it's not going to be high paying versus like a skilled where as you get more experience in that field in engineering, well, it's not going to be fun. So it's going to be a trade off. But the fun part is that you'll have a skill or a license that you can command a higher pay, and then with that higher pay, you can enjoy the better part of life. What makes life worth living is, and you can also make that argument. Oh, that was only money doesn't. Yeah. Anyway, blah blah blah. So back to what I was saying. So the lady, it was her status. The phone was her way to save face, and they were willing to sacrifice a lot of things to save face. So I'm just saying, be careful. So this lady was going to spend a lot of money just on a cell phone, so she can't afford. She'll work there and she'll work there, and so she'll sacrifice a lot of other things that that it'd be better for her to spend her money on. So she could have this status, so she could save face. So be careful what people are how far people are willing to go to save their face and not only self-sacrifice but sacrifice you, which I have a lot of experience with. So that's why saving face is very important for you to know, and how it can affect you and how it can affect you negatively for the most part. And especially when it comes to relationships with Filipinas, because of saving face, they have to say number one, they're virgins. And if they're not virgins, number two is they have to say that they were raped. And just make sure that when they say they were raped, it's not you. And if it is you, then that's another issue that we can discuss. But the first thing you need to know is that you will be a rapist. And the number one reason why is not because you're a rapist, you're automatically a rapist, is because you're automatically a rapist just to save face. Now, that's the take home message over here. Oh, what the consequences of that ranges from getting married to spending the rest of your life in prison. That's what you, and we have to accept that because we can't bury our heads in the sand and expect that the worst case scenario is I end up getting married to this girl that I really like. Or what happens if you don't really like her and you just wanted to sample the goods? And then that's where you go. Well, then that's if you want to sample as many goods as you want, then you deal with prostitutes. And I go, why prostitutes when the lagas are very good? Hey, you don't have to convince me. I can't get it. I can't get hard with prostitutes anymore. I'm at that age where it's physically impossible for me to get hard with somebody that has no I have no emotional connection with it, or has no vista, who's just like looking at her nails dry while we're doing the deed. When you're with the dalaga, it's just the experience is so visceral. It's the connection that you make with somebody, the intimacy that a dalaga, if she gives herself to you, that is, that she's opening up her wings, because she has this emotional, because a dalaga will not just open up her wings to just anybody. She can only open up her wings to one person, and the fact that she'll do it for you, because she can only do it not with a non-prostitute, she'll do it for anybody to the bidder, not even the highest bidder, just to anybody who bids. Versus a dalaga, if she's opening herself up to you, she can't do it with anybody else except you. And that's such a powerful mind, like me. I'm like the only one here. That's such a powerful erection. And that because I really need my mind now to make it go. Before, I don't need my mind to make it go, to make it hard. Now I need both. It's just an old man at my stage now in my 40s. I need that to enjoy it. If not, if I don't have that kind of connection where I'm like, part of it is like, wow, this girl is giving me the most important, her most important prized possession. But you do have to understand that if it does go sour, and we can get into that. Well, where did it go sour for you, Bebo? So it never went sour for me. But if it does go sour, I figure out a way. I've never had this problem before until the police got involved, and I probably, so that's probably what we want to discuss in the next live stream. In the meantime, I got to finish this off. It's been like an hour. The I should have done a live stream on this so we could make it a discussion, but I could bring this up anyway. The point I wanted to make here is you automatically, to save face, they're virgins, and automatically to save face is that you're a rapist if you are dealing with the non-prostitutes, the lagas here, that's single with no children, and not single, not married, with no children, versus a single mom who's most likely they're prostitutes to support their family. Then you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about, they're still going to say they're a virgin, but you don't have to worry about them calling you a rapist if it does go for them to force to get what they want out of you. And it's never, like I said, as long as you know how to manage them, that's not going to be a problem. And I've done a pretty good job of it over the years, not admitting anything, but I am, when it comes to managing people and their, not only their expectations, but try to give them what they want. The problem comes in, this is where the problem comes in, is when it's something that I can't give them. There will come in a part in a relationship where it's no longer food. There are no longer clothes, no longer shoes, no longer school supplies, no longer college tuition, no longer education. They want something more than that. Okay. And this is where some of my relationships have become complicated. It was they want more than just all those things, and I can't give them what they want more. I can't give them what I can't give. And to probably touch up on it is, for example, is they'll ask they want to live together instead of this kind of part time where I'm as you can see my schedule, I'm not only going out with, they all know that I'm not just with one person. Like one weekend I'll be with another person, another weekend I'll be with another person. They don't want me with any other person anymore. They just want to be the person. Once you'll get to a certain point once you've been in a long time, which is actually perfect for you. If you're single and you're looking for that right relationship, there's going to be a point where that girl is going to say, I just, not only that that I want me to be the only one for you, I want you to be the only one for me, and I can't do that. That's where I run into problems. And most of those situations get resolved. And you know what are these things that you give them that they want? It depends on the situation, it depends on the girl, it depends on what they want. And I try to manage all of them, I try to balance all of them, but I cannot be to the point where they want me to be exclusive, that like I don't want you to be hanging out with other girls, I don't want you giving benefits to other girls, I just want it to be me. They'll get to a point in their in your relationship with them that they just want to possess you, which is good for you because you could do that. And if you have the right girl, which is just as long as she's a non-prostitute and she's not a man, okay, she's not a man and she's not a pirate, which is what I deal with, then it's good for you because then you can have a beautiful relationship with that person. You know, even though you're not the perfect person, even though they're not the perfect person, but you could work together. You know, just somebody that you can work together with. I mean, obviously, the most perfect example is like Joy and Christian. Okay, Christian obviously is not the pick of the litter. Okay, and of course everybody says, "Oh, because of money, because of that." Nothing further from the truth. It's public knowledge that he's been divorced. If he had any money, if Christian had any money, the first wife took it, and whatever little bit was left, the second wife took it. So there's really nothing left for Joy, but she was working with it. This was the father of her children, and as a Filipina, she stuck by her man because she's a non-prostitute. Okay, and I met her at that time, and was it I groomed her at that time to get her to like people, Western people like me, and it turned out wonderfully. Even if the people are, even Joy is a beautiful person, beautiful personality. Even she has some quirks in herself, but I'm not going to get into that. I would rather remember Joy for all the beautiful positive things that she has, and that's how I prefer to remember her. But like any woman, they're not perfect, they have their issues, and she definitely had her issues that I had issues with, and whatever those are, they're gone now. I mean, I just, like I said, I just like to remember my memories of her, and as I get older, they become more and more precious to me. And I only, even after all this, the what happened, I just we don't focus on, when we think about memories, we just think about the memories that make us happy. And I've had some of the greatest memories with her, and not just her, but with other people. And those were the things that kept me going while I was in prison. Was that, hey, at least I had a good life, and I had all these good memories to keep me, uh, to give me something to think about. That's what I was thinking of. I mean, first of all, my family, the kids were the first. I was thinking of all those good memories, and I've had a lot. And I have videos of all my good memories that the police have right now. But the point I wanted to make is that I am a happy person because of all these precious memories that I've had, not just with my family, with my wife, with my children, but with a lot of people here in the Philippines also, and a lot of people, of the people that came over here to visit. I enjoyed all of them, even the ones where I got upset. I still think there was, as long as it was an experience that we all can learn from, it's an experience worth having. And I'm generally a happy person because of those memories and those experiences, because most old people will tell you that those are the only things that matters, is the memories that you cherish, you enjoy the most, and the more you have them. And the problem is that right now those kind of relationships and experiences have become difficult to have. I mean, because as technology, we become more connected, we become more isolated at the same time. But anyway, enough of my going on. I'll just, like I said, uh, rape will equal will become an issue with you with a non-prostitute, and the reason why is because saving face. Anyway, this is Bed What's Only. If you have any questions or comments or disagree or want to just call me names as if this is in the 80s, so we're bullying, and go ahead. The comments are there for you. I mean, for me, part of the video is going through the comments. I think comments are just as entertaining. Some of the funniest things I've read were in the comments. So go to it. So leave me a like, smash that subscribe, whatever it is that people say. You already know they say it in every video. And I'll see you guys in the next vlog. Thanks for watching.